Kaizo Urouge, the Mad Monk Urouge, is a top 3 supernova. Yes, that Urouge that beat Cracker, that Urouge that you rarely hear about, is a top 3 supernova. And here's why. Let's start off with power scaling. Currently, Luffy is the only supernova capable of fighting a Yonko 1v1. We can say for certain that Luffy could have beat or at minimum fought Kaido on equal terms, especially with his Gear 5 mastery right now. Um, what we can't say that about is Law and Kid. Clearly, they were shown needing each other to stand on Big Mom's level. Neither of them were really capable of fighting Big Mom on equal terms. And since Sabu the Arc, they've been portrayed as the main captains, the big three of the supernova, which means in terms of just portrayal alone and power scaling, Kid and Law are stronger than Zoro, and we can say for now, Luffy, Law, Kid, and Zoro have been the top 4 or 5 supernova just based on the way that they're portrayed in the series. Now, let's move on to the portrayal pre Whole Cake Island, at which time the hierarchy changed. Um, it changed specifically when Urouge was stated to be Cracker and Brule stated Captain, Kid, Apu, Gang Beige, all fled Whole Cake Island without seeing or hearing Big Mom's voice. The only one who held on was Kaizo Urouge. So just based on this statement at the time, Urouge was portrayed as stronger than Kid, and I think Oda put that in there for a reason. It basically showed Urouge had reached Yonko Commander level even before Luffy, considering he beat Snack solo. Luffy beat Snacker with the help of Nami, and it was retcon later that Kid and Killer were shown saying that they had forced a Yonko commander to give them the poneglyph. We have no official confirmation of Kid literally forcing a Yonko commander to give him the poneglyph, but we do have confirmation that they do have the poneglyph. And another thing that we do have confirmation of, a pattern or something that Big Mom does to her Yonko commanders after they lose, is that they typically she typically demotes Yonko commanders that lose what she would deem to be embarrassing fights. So she demoted Snack after losing to Urouge. Whoever Kid wounded at the time, which was not Katakuri. Katakuri stated that Luffy was the first guy to have touched him in a while. Was not Cracker, because Cracker, it stated that nobody broke his biscuit armor in a very long time. So it's between Smoothie and Snack. I assume if Snack had forced, if Snack had been forced to hand over a poneglyph, that Big Mom would have demoted him earlier than when Urouge beat him. So it's likely they forced Smoothie to give her a poneglyph. Um, and even if I grant that they forced a Yonko commander to hand over a poneglyph, I'd still consider Urouge the only supernova at the time at Yonko level or at Yonko commander level, because even if we say he's telling the truth, this still puts that feat below what Luffy did at the time. Because in order to beat that Yonko commander, Kid needed both himself and his vice captain to beat that Yonko commander, which is why Kid said, or that's why Killer says it's like the one that we forced that Big Mom commander to hand over. So it was clearly a whole crew, or at minimum, captain and vice captain versus a Yonko commander. Luffy's was captain and non-major fighter Nami versus Yonko commander. Urouge was 1v1, Snag versus Urouge, no help at all, and then he fought a Yonko commander directly after that. So again, like in terms of scaling, in terms of feats, pre-Whole Cake Island, Urouge had the higher feats. I'm not saying that Whole Cake Island, Urouge was the strongest. I would still say Luffy is the strongest at that time. But Urouge, pre-Whole Cake Island, was definitely portrayed as stronger than Kid, and I would say he had better feats than Kid at the time, which made him a top 3 supernova at the time. So, again, I don't think it's controversial to say that he, like, it. Let's be non-controversial to say that Urouge was a top 4 supernova at the time, and that we can't really elevate him above the other captains. But Oda put it in the story for a reason. He could have easily made Brule say that all the supernova failed when they came to Whole Cake Island, but he didn't. He put it in there that this guy, the Kaizo Urouge, he's the only guy that beat the other, or that beat a Yonko commander solo. So, next point is the character introduction hierarchy. So, Jewelry Bonnie was the first supernova shown post time skip, I believe. It was when she was captured by Blackbeard and literally labeled as weak. The next supernova introduced was Beige, and he was introduced in Whole Cake Island. The next supernovas were Apu, Drake, and Hawkins, which were introduced in Wano, and Kid was also introduced in Wano. But the point is, the theme here is that Otis showed us the weaker supernovas first, and then he raised the bar and the tiers every single arc. So from Bonnie to Beige to Apu, X Drake, Hawkins tier, and then to Kid and Law and Wano, and last but not least, who is the one he has yet to show yet? Kaizo Urouge, the only guy that Oda has not shown yet. He hasn't even shown us snippets or anything. He's saving the best for last. That's the only assumption you can make at that point. A character is so important. He's part of the supernova generation. He refuses to show us anything about this guy. Every time this guy appears, it's doing something badass. So he shows up in Sky Island. He's literally praying for Kaido as he jumps off a cliff. My troll theory is obviously that Kaido saw Urouge on top of Sky Island and decided to commit suicide. But all trolling aside, every time Urouge is portrayed, it's in a strong manner. He's saving this guy for last because he is at the peak of the supernova. He has been portrayed as top 4, in my opinion, top 3, but uncontroversially, he's been portrayed as top 4, and he's maintained that rank for the whole series. So I know a lot of people's counter arguments will be feats. Clearly, Kid, Law, Zoro have better feats right now, and just with them all fighting and beating Yonko/Yonko commanders. Um, but and in addition to feats, the power scaling too. Luffy, Zoro, Kid Law have all gotten a combination of Advanced Conquerors, Haki, and Awakening. Luffy has both, which is why he's at the tier. He's on his own tier. Zoro has Advanced Conquerors imbuing. Kid and Law obviously have Awakening. Um, Urouge in terms of strength, um, he has uh, been growing, leading back to his first portrayal in Sabaody. That was where um, he was really the only supernova capable of going toe to toe with a pacifista. Um, he had the best showing, like hands down. The Straw Hats required the whole crew to truly go toe to toe with a pacifista. Um, both Kid and Law, like they needed each other to go toe for toe with a pacifista. Urouge solo, again solo, pushed back a pacifista. X Drake couldn't even do anything at all to a pacifista. He was fodder. The only guy that's been portrayed as this guy that can truly handle everything solo is Urouge. He showed up at Whole Cake Island solo, by himself, no crew. The Pacifista came at him. He said, let me handle him solo. It's fair to assume that since all these other top supernovas have access to awakening during Wano, that Urouge, who has grown in strength pre time skip to time skip. So from pre time skip, he was not even capable of beating a pacifista. Post time skip to Yonko commander level, and that was pre Whole Cake Island, which was the best portrayal that we've seen of any supernova. So it's only fair to assume that this guy that has grown so much, even though we haven't seen him at all, even though we haven't seen his training, we haven't seen who he's been fighting, he's also grown in power to be able to scale with his peers. So it's safe to say, 100% safe to say, that Urouge, being a top 4 supernova, has awakening, since the other 4, Kid, Law, Luffy, all have awakening. And this guy has been their peer. He's been not their equal, but he's been on their tier for the entire time he's been introduced into the series. So let me summarize this. Urouge is a top 3 supernova for 3 reasons. The first one being portrayal. He's been portrayed as a top supernova since the beginning. This is Kaizo Urouge, the Chad of Chads, the Giga Chad of the series. He's been top 4 since the beginnings, and there's no argument you could make to convince me otherwise. In terms of point 2, reason 2, character introduction hierarchy. Oda saved the strongest supernova for last, and he introduced supernovas from the lowest level with Bonnie post time skip when she got caught by Blackbeard, to Kid, who is currently arguably Yonko Commander or Yonko, in between Yonko Commander and Yonko level right now. So we went from Bonnie, who was fodder, to Kid, who is Yonko Commander slash Yonko level. So what can we assume Urouge is just based on the way that his peers are? We can assume that he's higher, at least higher than Yonko Commander level, because he was already Yonko Commander level before the time skip. Or I mean before Whole Cake Island. So this guy's growth had to have gone up since then. There's no excuse for his growth not to go past Yonko Commander level, considering he was already at the lower end of that level pre Whole Cake Island. And last but not least, power growth. Like I stated before, Urouge in Saburi arc was the only supernova really going toe to toe with the Pacifista. But he went from not even being able to solo a Pacifista to, in a time skip, being able to beat a lower end Yonko commander. He's growing at the same rate that Luffy is. There's no mistake about that. So we can say that just based on his feats, his power growth feats as well, that he is admin above Yonko commander level now, which would put him at least a top 3 supernova. I would put him equal to Law, because as for now, so Snack is a swordsman. Urouge has no issue beating swordsman because he beats Snack. So just being a swordsman doesn't mean that you're going to beat Urouge. So sorry, Zoro fans, but Urouge is clapping Zoro. Zoro cuts him up. Retribution. It's over. It's done. It's finished. But he's a top. I put him on par with Law. Put those 2/3. Luffy's obviously number 1. Then I got Kid at 4, Zoro at 5. But regardless, the main point of this video is that Urouge is a top 3 supernova. Thank you.